Well,
We'll
what
see.
is it that your client is saying? I mean, there's so much confusion and fear and all that. I mean, is this one of those times where, as a manager, you can still remain on the same page with your client?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's brought us even closer together than we already were, because my job is crisis management pretty much all day long anyway, and here we are in a real crisis, and I'm very fortunate to work with a band and a team of people where we can have really meaningful conversations about this stuff and work towards a plan together that everyone feels really great about. The band, they've been incredibly understanding, and their position is like, look, we're going to be okay. Like, we just hope that at some point we'll be able to make up these shows for the fans in a safe environment and go back out there and do what we love to do. I mean, I think we can all on this call agree that the number one thing that bonds people together and gets them through really hard times is music. So we want to be able to go back and bring the live show to the fans again, but of course at a time where we can do that safely. And to touch on some of the other points about going into smaller rooms potentially, that's something we're discussing. I think looking at the fall and winter time frame, I mean, the traffic's probably going to be insane. Everyone trying to play, I'm talking specifically about the club circuit, but challenging those rooms and every tour going up and trying to make up for losses. And what does the ticket buyer look like in the fall of 2020? What does that financially look like for people? What do those restrictions look like on venues? So, we're taking all of that into consideration and just trying to do our best to eventually get back out there and do what we love to do.
Mike, can you talk about that? Also, you're coming from the manager perspective as well. If just talk for a little bit about this idea that, there being a lower capacity, it just seems like every venue is just looking to sell out every single show and do so in as far in advance as possible, so they don't have the headache anymore. I'm sure Peter and Anthony can speak to that much more than I could. But as a manager, what are you thinking about strategically about how you get your client into the venues once this logjam opens up and the phones start ringing again?
I'm thinking much differently after the first 10 minutes of this panel, I'll tell you that. That said, I think, back to Dave's point where nobody knows anything, or at least we all know the same amount of information. I mean, thankfully with Ice Nine Kills, we have a pretty solid plan, and we've been out in front of it to a pretty good degree already. That said, we had a tour much like, Kim described. We had an April-May arena tour supporting Five Finger Death Punch that, as of now has moved to September, October, November. It would be really interesting. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what happens if only the red states play? And I'm actually, as Dave was describing that, I was like, okay, what do you do if you're trying to route something, right? Are you booking, red states with a day off in hopes that a blue state is going to, open up during that period? I think it's just such kind of a crapshoot. And I don't know. I think we will change our perspective as information changes. But yeah, as all these guys just described, if we're not already thinking 2 steps ahead, once the information changes, if it changes in line with the way that the people thinking 2 steps ahead is right, then we're behind the curve, if that makes sense. So as of right now, today, I feel good. We'll see throughout the rest of this panel. I might have to take a breather, go get a towel and wipe some sweat off my forehead.
Well, Peter, you talked earlier about how information is so key, and the decision on when venues can open and what their capacities are going to be. It seems like just the nature of the beast is going to be like, okay, tomorrow. It's not going to be like in 30 days, and therefore you can kind of plan, I assume. So what is the sort of low-hanging fruit for you as a venue operator and as a promoter that will be the methodology for people to contact you so that they can get booked and have it happen quickly?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, you know, with the red state, blue state thing, I live in a blue state, and I also have, which is Colorado, and then I have Dallas. So like, I'm looking for two different plans completely. You know, I've talked to my Dallas partners about how we're going to get going once we can. And also the situation in Dallas is interesting because Gas Monkey has a restaurant. So that restaurant will be able to open up in the first phase, but then will they let us put a band on stage while the restaurant is open, even if it's not like a paid concert where we could do local stuff? So there's a lot of, I mean, like, again, so many questions, but I kind of don't think it's going to be, okay, you can open tomorrow. They're going to be like, venues can open on August 15th or whatever, right? So you're going to have plenty of time to see, and they might say, hey, we're going to see how phase 1 is going. And then by the time we get to phase 3, this would be the plan. So I think since there's no national guideline, you're just waiting for your local governor to make the call. And I think the local governors have been providing a lot more information than the federal has, obviously. So once they give us that, you know, I expect, you know, I'm still taking holds throughout. I mean, people are still trying to confirm June shows, and I'm like, you're crazy. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm still taking all these holds and trying to confirm things through the fall. And, you know, fortunately, for the most part, I do business with my friends for the majority, like Dave and all the guys at Sound and everyone I work with, I've been doing business with a long time for the most part. So, you know, we all work really well together and are always talking anyway, even if there's nothing to talk about. Dave and I will talk, or Matt or Tim or whatever. So, you know, I don't think there's a grand plan here.
Anthony,
Yeah, I think.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, like, I think, you know, to that point, I think that venues will start to come back online kind of the same way they went offline. Like, I'm sure you guys remember those first few days, certain cities were saying, oh, no shows, no gatherings of over 1,000 people. And then it was no gatherings over 750 and then 500. So I think it's going to come back online very similarly. Maybe they'll say, okay, gatherings of up to 100 people are allowed. And then they see that kind of goes okay. And okay, now gatherings up to 300 or 400, and it slowly rolls out. But the other point to that is that what I was saying earlier about convincing some of the bigger bands to just go play really small just so they can get back on the road. The other thing that's nice about that is that if you have a band that can sell 300 tickets playing a 300 capacity room, you know, you need your 2, 3, 4 month on sale, and you need kind of that traditional rollout of marketing to make that work. Now, if you have a band that sells 2,000 tickets going to play 300 capacity rooms, we can announce those shows the same day. So like if tomorrow they told Peter, you can have 300 people in your room at Denver, and, you know, we could literally the next day, that morning, announce, you know, an August Burns Red show or a Wonder Years show or an Ice Nine Kills show or whatever, for that night. And it'd be fine because, you know, so like, that's another thing that kind of works with these bands kind of going doing these extreme underplays is like, we don't need any time to market shows like that. Like, you know, if you're going to play that small for bands that big, you know, we'll book them on a day's notice, literally.
And I love Dave. He's always thinking like an agent that just assumes that the manager is going to get the band to Colorado that day.
That's right.
Driving.